Welcome everybody to a tutorial for Wonderdraft on how to mix colors. Now I've got this map here and I've made it black and white, and that's to show you the following. Let's say I have my red, green and blue colors. Here in the town I want red. To the west I want some blue, and in the south I want green. Now this just looks ugly, mainly because of the colors, but also because the blending isn't very great. One way to do this is to lower the opacity of your color, and if I select green, I'm mixing the colors right now. If I do this with green and red and then back to green, you will see that it creates a transition between the two colors. A tip is to mix everything, because let's say this is grass and this is something like walked on grass. There are still parts of it which are not walked on. Now the blue side, let's say that's sand. I wanted to have more sand than I want to have grass, which is green. But on the top, the red really needs to stand out because it's on the edge. So here, there shouldn't be much blending. Which roughly looks like this. Now on the top I do want to have some green, but not too much. Now this we can also do for creating realistic maps with realistic colors. To do this I'm going to use Avoro. To do this I'm going to use my own theme called Avoro, which is 4.0. My own theme called Avoro 4.1. which I'm going to apply, and then I'm going to use the eraser again to get rid of all the colors. Now what I'm going to do is use a dark forest color and fill in the whole map. As you can see, it looks kind of shitty, but we'll work on that. Now as you can see, I've got a whole variety of different colors: sand, dirt, rocks, different rocks, colder rocks, ice, snow. And I started off with a dark color because it makes blending very easy. Just as with painting or coloring, you always start with a darker color because it's easier to mix. But of course, if you start with a light color and then paint really softly with dark, it's also doable. Now I'm going to lower my opacity and make the brush really large, like this. Now if I'm going to fill it in, you can see it already looks quite okay. It gives a nice difference in color. Now if I've got my grass here, and of course near the coast it's going to be less lush green because it's going to mix with sand. So then that's what I'm doing right now. Now of course it all looks very dark right now, and that's going to change. I'm going to use a very bright color and have the opacity to the low setting. Now I'm going to just randomly actually mix in colors. Doesn't really matter where it is. I'm also going to use some lighter colors, some more lush ones, to give it really a lot of variance. Some lighter ones near the water. And at this point I can't even tell the difference if I'm painting. But I do want to have some difference, so I'm slowly going to increase the opacity. As you can see, that already turns out a lot lusher, a lot greener. I'm still going to make those variants of colors, different shades. But the thing is, my forests are all like darker, and forests are dense, so those need darker colors. To do this, I'm going to select dark color and again use a lower opacity, because forests are dense and have a lot of shadows, and light doesn't really go through them that easy. Alright, so now I have that, but my forest looks way too dark. To fix this, I'm going to use again different colors of dark to lighten it up a bit. And this is just for the ground right now, because we're going to change the color of the trees later. Well, actually, that's what we're going to do right now. So I've got here a filter, and I'm going to deselect everything and just select the trees. I'm going to use quite a bright color and just very lightly go over the trees. Using different colors all the time to give it that random look. And don't hesitate to use some other colors, like a more sand color or whatever, because the more difference you have, the nicer it looks, at least in my opinion. Now don't go too much overboard with this, and if you did make a mistake like I have here, it looks a bit, yeah, what do you call it, different. I'm just going to paint over it again. Now here I've got these rocks, and the rocks I'm going to just paint using my rock colors. But those are symbols, as you can see. Now these ones are colored in already, so I'm going to use the manual color, select color, and you can see it does something different. But if I change this around a bit, you can see it still picks up the same hue. Well, I'm not sure if hue is right, but you understand what I'm saying. So now I've got my rocks painted in. Again, a little bit of difference isn't bad, so I'm going to give it a different color. Now for these, the farmlands, I want a different color, a little bit more corn. And again, a lower opacity, because otherwise it doesn't really mix in all that well with the grass color. Because remember, the grass is still there, but there's just a farm on top of it. It's not like the terrain has changed into a farmland, there's a farmland on top. Because of this, I'm also going to add a little bit of dirt and lightly add that, which I'm also going to add to the ground. A little bit too much, so I'm going to add in some green again. Okay, so this already looks quite nice, if I say so for myself. But here is a path, and I don't want to use paths, but instead I'm going to lightly color it in using my brush. And of course, a town is a place where people walk, So I'm also going to add some sand colors to the paths and the town. Now we haven't touched the coast yet, so do that now using a light sand color. I also like to add some rock colors because it's not only beaches or something. And then I'm also going to very lightly paint green on it to give it a more nice transition between the grass and the sand. Now, okay, this looks good, at least in my opinion. But let's say I want this to be a desert. So I'm going to remove the trees. And oftentimes, at least in the real world, you don't go from a grassland to a desert instantly. So what do we need? We need a transition. And that's a natural separation between biomes. So let's say a mountain. If I'm adding a mountain range right here, probably not all that realistic, I'm sure, but it's just to show. Now first I'm going to lightly color this. And now I'm going to, with a different color, as you can see this, if I were to have it like this, it's really strange. So I'm adding sand colors and rocks and all kind of different materials to give it really a variance, a lot of variety in colors. Also be sure to paint the other side, because it's not like it doesn't exist there. It's not like the wind doesn't blow it over or something. Same for this side. Add a little bit of green to give it a nicer transition. For the mountains, I'm first going to add the desert color for the rocks and stuff. Then I'm going to add a little bit of green. And now I'm going to add my rock color. Again, a little bit of green. And a little bit of the desert color. And in theory, this should look quite nice. Now it's up to you to decide if it actually is. But I hope that this actually helps you a bit to maybe color your maps differently. At least it helps me, so maybe it helps you. If you have questions, comments, or just want to say something, leave it in the comment section below. Also, if you have questions or need feedback for your map, also leave it below. If you want to see the assets and theme I used in this map, head over to the description. I've linked all assets and themes in the description below. So yeah, let me know what you think. How do you paint your maps? Are you using the same technique, or are you using a different one? Let me know.